We are live. Welcome to the Clean Power Hour Live. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. It is September 1st, 2022. Welcome to the show, John Weaver, commercial solar guy.
Timothy.
Live. Welcome to the Clean Power Hour Live.
How you doing today?
It is a beautiful summer day here in the Midwest, and we have had the most lovely summer. Despite much of our country and much of Europe being in massive heat waves, the Midwest has really been just amazing. And I took possession of my 1972 Custom Flex Flying Scot sailboat over the weekend, and so now I'm skippering my sailboat a lot, and I'm part of a fleet of Flying Scots, Fleet 135. We're out there every week, usually twice a week, but now it's going to be more because I can. Whenever it's good wind, I go sailing. But so life is good. Life is really good. And we're riding the coattails of the IRA. We see lots of stories related to the IRA. So you see what good industrial policy does for the clean energy transition. How are you, John?
I'm doing good. In fact, you mentioned the IRA, lots of stories. I saw a funny poll and it said, which boom, as in economic boom, are you most happy about with the IRA? The manufacturing boom, the solar boom, the electrification boom, or the IRA webinar boom? So there's a boom in the business of talking about the IRA, which I thought was kind of funny. And there are lots of things happening. I think, that could that maybe should be the thing that leads our conversation, is everything that's being announced. The battery factories. I saw our friend Simon from Benchmark say that over $15 billion of battery manufacturing facilities were announced in recent times. And it's Toyota, Panasonic, or LG has 2 facilities, one of them with Tesla, one of them on their own. There's Hyundai is going to be doing it. I don't know if VW and Mercedes have announced anything in the US, but it's coming. So there you go in that one. You got Toyota, Honda, LG, all pushing for battery investments, and that's pretty cool.
I'm going to put this court story on screen, and Japanese and South Korean firms are ramping up EV battery investments in the US. I mean, this is just common sense to you and I, right? Because we've seen the electrification of transportation coming, and are living that dream. Well, I was living it temporarily anyway. I'm just fantasizing about it again, but at least one of us is living the dream, John.
Yep. I'm very happy with my my Hyundai Ioniq 5. It's just a normal, regular car. It gets great mileage. I'm probably averaging close to, 3.7 kilowatt hours per mile. Or no, it's the other way. 3.7 miles per kilowatt hour. I don't know. I always mix it up. Kilometers, something like that. And it's a good car. And I'm still getting free electricity, which is pretty awesome. Right now, the car is still in the place of giving me, because it was a Hyundai deal with Electrify America, I'm getting free electricity for 2 years. So that's pretty sweet. I'm not gonna complain about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
did you by any chance see the tweet of that Tesla is readying their network to be third-party accessible? There's for 99 cents a month, you can get slightly discounted electricity, or just pull up and charge. I just thought that was kind of cool. It's going to be in their app soon, so they're going to force everybody to have a Tesla app on their phone to use their network. But I just thought that was kind of cool. So all these people...
I didn't see that. Of course, they announced this last year, and you just have to take Elon's announcements with a certain grain of salt, because he lives in his own parallel universe. It's called Elon time. But of course, they're smart, I think, to open up the network and it is so robust, especially in certain geographies. I mean, it's good here in the Midwest. It's fantastic on the East Coast.
Yeah.
I was just blown away when I drove to the East Coast last year with my Model Y, how convenient and easy and ubiquitous is the word, right? Chargers
Yeah.
or Tesla chargers are everywhere,
Yeah,
and
they are.
others, but especially Tesla. But I'm glad to see the Japanese automakers in the news here in this court story. Honda announced a partnership with LG, obviously one of the largest battery makers, bar none, and it's form these partnerships or swim in extremely perilous waters, right? Because if you want to mass produce EVs, you have to have loads and loads of batteries. And that's why we see Tesla vertically integrating, making their own batteries, and now these mega partnerships forming. And even Toyota, the latest comer of all the major automakers, right? I mean, it's just shocking how late they are to the party. They don't have a single pure EV, I don't think, available in the United States yet. But it's coming. They have announced a whole lineup of pure EVs, and they're building a battery factory in South Carolina, I believe. They announced a $5 billion investment in Japan and the US, $5.3 billion to boost EV battery output, and half of that's going to North Carolina, excuse me. I'm a huge Toyota fan. I've owned many Toyotas. I drive a Toyota today. I would love to have an electric Toyota, but I'll probably have a Ford electric truck before I have an electric Toyota. If Ford can get their act together and mass produce, I mean, that's the thing, right? Yeah, the American automakers are making EVs now, but only in relatively small quantities, with the exception maybe of GM. But they're not a Tesla, right? They're not. I don't think GM is making hundreds of thousands of EVs, are they? I don't know.
I mean, nobody's making hundreds of thousands right now, from what I've seen. I mean, maybe it's Tesla and BYD. Yeah. Well, let's look it up. Top EV manufacturers, H1 2022. Yeah, there's going to be. Here's a list. Yeah, I mean, like BYD and Tesla just lead everybody. I mean, that's just really what it is. And then, there's a few Chinese manufacturers that are big. That's a big market. But in the U.S., here we go. Let's go top EV. So BYD is number one at 640,000. Tesla number two at 560. A Chinese group at 350. VW at 330. Volvo at 230. So there you go. So the others aren't that far behind. 50%. GM's not in the top five though.
Yeah.
After that, it falls off really quickly. So,
sticking with the EV news, I saw that Herbert Diess at Volkswagen is stepping down, and
okay.
He had a rough ride there at VW, but he's largely responsible for driving VW towards being an EV automaker, and they have, the ID.4 is a very credible entrant into that, small SUV market, going head to head with the Model Y. So I was saddened by that. I consider VW to be one of the thought leaders in electrification of transportation. We'll see if they will, continue and keep up on that trajectory, because it truly is. It's a fly or die scenario for the automakers, right? If you're not serious today about an all-electric fleet in the next 5 years, you're going to go extinct. And that's just the nature of the economy, right? People are not going to be buying ICE engine cars in 5 to 10 years because they're non-economical. Has nothing to do with Americans wanting to go sustainable, unfortunately. It's just about dollars and cents. And the Model Y is going to be the most popular car in America, and they will be everywhere.
it's interesting. I was out. You said Model Y is the most popular. My car, the Ioniq 5, is the same type of car. It's a hatchback slash,
Mhm.
crossover SUV.
Yeah.
Small vehicle that's half car, half SUV. And yesterday I was driving on the highway and I saw a Mach E. And at first, when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, that's a Model Y." Oh, no, that's a Mach E. And they have a cut that's similar, a structure. So the Mach E, the Ioniq 5, the Tesla, all three roughly the same car when I see it out there. So the fact that all these three companies have focused on that vehicle structure, size, utility, that's probably why Elon did his Model Y as the big ramp up volume. And so I'm not surprised if the Model Y turns out to be the most popular car. I mean, isn't there a market or two where it might be the most popular car, or are we talking like the whole United States when you say most popular, like
Yeah,
this
no, I
year?
mean, this is just a prediction that you see floating around. It's not there numbers wise. The Camry and the Honda Accord, have been kind of going head to head in the sedan category anyway for the last decade as the most popular car. But as we know, neither Honda nor Toyota has to my knowledge, a Model Y competitor, and Americans love that form factor. I loved it, right? It's just so convenient. It's a utility vehicle. You can put a lot of stuff in the back. You can go camping. It has towing capacity. It's just so many lovely things about it. And I'm curious though, what is the Mach E volume now on an annual basis? Because Ford is being very quiet about my Ford Lightning. That's for darn sure. It's so sad. The dealership keeps reaching out to me. Oh, are you still interested, Mr. Montague, in getting a Ford Lightning? And I'm like, yes. When can I get it? And they have no clue.
But they keep sending you that dumb email. Ugh, that's
Yep.
annoying.
Yeah.
So let's see. So Mach E sales, the total sales, but I don't know about sales versus delivery. So the sales, they have it like total a couple thousand a month are being sold. It looks like up to 4,000 a month are being sold this year. And it's apparently down a little bit. Well, no, it doesn't look down when I'm looking at this chart. So, but okay, so far this year, as of the end of April, 10,000 Mach-E's were delivered, which is significantly lesser than Model Y, Teslas or anything else like that.
Yeah, probably
So
by a factor of 10.
yeah,
So yeah, that's the real challenge for the automakers is scaling production. And I'm now kind of feeling I'm going to go public with this prediction. I'm sad to make this prediction, John, but I'm predicting that Rivian is not going to survive.
oh,
It's
oh,
a lovely form factor. It's a lovely vehicle, but I don't get the feeling like they're really ramping quickly enough to meet consumer demand, and their price point is a little high compared to Ford, compared to Cybertruck, and
well,
both
the
Ford.
Cybertruck's not on sale yet, so there's no idea what the heck it's going to cost. Because
Yeah, and Elon is smart, right? He's going to put his resources into Model Y production because that is going to be a way more popular vehicle. The Cybertruck is like the cherry on top, right? It is going to be awesome and it's going to be popular, but right now they have to be serious about keeping up. And as you migrated away from Tesla yourself, right, John? Because you can't get a Tesla
couldn't
without
get
a
one.
9-month wait.
Yeah, I was like, I had to be in an EV at that moment, so I had to move. So that's they lost a customer because of that, unfortunately.
I mean, I think it's 2 years since I made my Cybertruck reservation.
I made
And
it the day it came out, the day it was available. I made it. So
yeah,
you know,
but yeah, it's very exciting to see the ice is turning to water now. It truly is. If you don't know this analogy, it's ice, 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 water, right? Things are looking seemingly like, oh, this isn't happening. EVs, what are you talking about? It's less than 2%, right? Well, when you're at 1%, you just need 7 doublings to get to 100%, as Amory Lovins loves to point out. And so this tipping point phenomenon in economics is very hard to grok. Our brain, it's a mind bender, but when it happens, it's a phase shift, right? It goes from slow to fast, and that curve can happen over a short period of time. We see this in nature, and we see this in economics. The economy can go from good to bad, unfortunately, in a short period of time, right? It's much easier for things to fall apart, so to speak, than it is for us to put them together. And that's really the problem with climate change. We have to talk about climate change regularly, right? To just remind us why we do this work. This is not just to get rich, although a lot of people are getting rich on the clean energy transition and are going to get rich. It is what Jigar Shah calls the largest wealth transfer opportunity of our generation. And, by some estimates, we're talking about $100 trillion of infrastructure being installed around the world, including electrification of transportation and greening the grid. And one of the benefits, though, is stepping back from the brink of climate change, which will kick our butts. It won't snuff us out. It just turns us into potentially like really scrappy cockroaches. I'd rather be a modern human with modern accoutrements and the good life that we have, and we totally can do it. We just have to lean in and partner with Korean companies, because the Asian economies have just glommed onto this way faster than we have. I was looking at the stats, John, on solar panel manufacturing, and you know this way more than I do, but China manufactures 22 times as many solar panels as the United States does. Let that sink in, people. 22 times. If that isn't a national security threat, I don't know what is, because you get free energy from solar panels, which means you free up resources to do other things. And what might China want to do with those other resources?
Like some countries. Or
Build a world-class military, build a world-class AGI, those are the resources we're talking about. And so we need to invest in the energy transition. Thank you to the IRA.
So you said you want to talk about climate change. Next article is an interesting one. It's just there's one key graph in it that I thought was interesting to show, and people talk
Yale
about
Environment 360. I love the work that comes out of Yale. We'll put this on screen. What's the story?
So if you scroll down to the image, I mean, that's really it. The image is right there. This is Siberia, and this is the temperatures that we had measured. Some of it we had measured directly, others we measured via other tools. And these are the temperatures in Siberia. And this temperature pattern follows what's happening in the Arctic and other northern regions, where while the global temperature is up about 1.2 degrees, the temperatures up north are accelerating at a much higher level. And we're seeing massive flooding, droughts. Already we're seeing changes that what the human species would consider very significant from 1.2 degrees. These regions are seeing double that already. And, there are fires every year in massive volumes in Siberia. There are fires across just fires all over the earth now, like that in places that fires just didn't happen. It's just so hot and so dry, and then one lightning strike, boom, or one cigarette flicked out a window, or a power line touching a tree branch, whatever. There's 1,000 things to start a fire. I think California had like 10,000 forest fires or fires of some nature over the last 5 years, 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
and Siberia is having them too. And so, if we're talking climate change, let's remember that the world is moving, things are happening, and
Yeah.
3 degrees, 2.5 degrees centigrade is 4 degrees Fahrenheit. That's
Yeah.
hot. That's a big difference, especially in the seasons when it piles on. Because in the summer, it's not 4 degrees hotter. It's not 1.2 hotter. It's 3, 4, 5 hotter because it adds and it compounds.
Yeah.
And we're already bearing some issues. So this is real. This is happening, and I hope we move fast enough and accelerate ourselves to do our jobs because we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, that's the question, right? Can we make the transition fast enough? Can we decarbonize the economy? Can we remove those 40 gigatons, 40 to 50 gigatons of CO2 equivalent emissions per year that we're making today? Remember, we are still increasing atmospheric CO2 levels here in 2022. The work that you and I are doing in solar and our colleagues in wind energy is wonderful, and it's the fastest growing source of new power on the grid globally, but we're just nipping at the edges, really, right? We're still just starting to tap the brakes, and we're still increasing CO2 levels. So we have to get serious. The IRA is it's in the vein of serious, right? Is it enough? We'll see. Only time will tell. And luckily, it's a combination of things. It is a good confluence of events that we're seeing signs of global warming, and so people are starting to be more aware. It's like the awareness is now mainstream because it's in the news every day. And then we have economic tailwinds, right? The price adoption curve for technology is in our favor now. Solar is now affordable. It's economic. The utilities themselves are investing in huge chunks of solar, wind, and battery storage because their old infrastructure is a money loser. That's the bottom line, right? That's why they're making the transition. And yes, we have RPSs and these good things at the state level, which are absolutely necessary. If you don't have a good RPS, get with your Solar Energy Industry Association and work on that, because that is a foundation for any good solar market. And that's the weird thing about our industry, John, is it is so regional, as you were saying in the pre-show, right? You can't just go to any state and say, oh, I'm going to do commercial industrial solar in X, Y, and Z place, right? There's a handful, and luckily it's a growing handful, and there's plenty of work to do, but it's not all 50 states, certainly. Yet.
Yeah.
It will be.
Soon. So why don't we spin back to EVs for a second and talk about the fact that we are at the very beginning of electrical vehicle innovation. And I like this motor that is a high-end motor that was invented in some dude's laboratory in the UK. He was then bought out by the company that owns Ferrari and I think BMW or Mercedes. And the headline number, first off, the images are cool, but the headline number I saw that was interesting is that the mass of the motors, and this is for a hybrid unit, were 85% less than a competitive unit. And they have better performance, go faster, have all kinds of neat things. They're going into Ferraris. So this is, trickle down effect technology wise. And so I'm just really, I think the form factor of cars could massively change. And we saw it with the structure of the canoe unit. It just looks a little weird. We're seeing it a little bit differently with how they're building, say, Tesla's building their Cybertruck, or how electric vehicles, they're just a little different shaped on the inside. They have all these different, they're a little bit flatter. They're just structured differently. So
Well, you
I'm
have
just,
more room, right?
yeah,
You don't, without all those like drive shafts, without the transmission, without the internal combustion engine, you just have that flat battery pack in the foundation, which is great. It makes the car very safe and rollover resistant.
hmm.
And then you put a box on top of that, and it's just, you've got more room. It's a wonderful thing.
So I'm wondering what's going to happen. What weird, cool, neat things will we see in EVs? Like, we've talked about the Aptera, the vehicle that says it can get 1,000 miles from solar charging.
Yeah.
Um, that's a very weird structure. And I totally think that's a cool video. Hey, so we're sharing commercials and stuff. Oh, check it out. What is
I
this?
had to
This is
skip
an
the ad.
old.
This is the little video on this Bloomberg story about Mercedes and Ferrari. I didn't know that
Oh,
Mercedes and Ferrari were one company, but
I still didn't realize that even after reading the article a whole bunch. Yeah, so I'm just really interested in seeing what's going to come of what smart people and engineers and science fiction writers to some degree can deliver, because it's just cool. Yeah, that's of course what we all want. But, come on. Where's my DeLorean? Where's my time machine? Uh so I when I saw that article and I saw that innovation in making these motor units, it just really caught my attention. And that's right. Look at that. That's so cool. Just little pieces of metal, and it just caught my attention, and it made me, because I keep seeing in my head like there's going to be all kinds of neat innovation. The form factor of vehicles will we'll put tires in the wheel or motors in all the wheels. Every car will be four motor drive, maybe, and we'll just pump electricity around it, and it's going to change, and we're going to be able to build cars a little differently, and they're going to do things differently, and so I'm just excited with the change, I guess, and looking forward to what cool people, what smart people will do, and what's going to come out of it. And so that's
from a
it.
form factor perspective, I think autonomous driving is really going to be the major change, right? When you can take the steering wheel and the pedals out of the car, you can turn the car into a what's the word? It's like a lounge on wheels, right? You can have two bench seats facing each other.
Yeah.
No longer worried about watching the road, because the computer is 90% safer than the human driver was before it, and the computer can talk to all the other computers on the road, and they can avoid each other that way. And that technology is already out there. I think Volvo is using this technology. Having awareness of what's going on the road in ways that we humans just cannot do.
Last night I'm in walking around Boston, headed out to dinner, and I was coming up Charles Street next to Beacon Hill, and we passed us as we were walking a whole bunch of individuals on small transportation. The unicycles. Have you seen the unicycles, the electric unicycles around town?
Yeah.
They go like 20, 30, 40 miles an hour. And for Boston, that's really all you need for half the city, because you can't go much faster with traffic. And I just
Wear
saw
your crash helmet.
yeah, I saw a whole crowd of them go by. And I was like, wow, look at that. That's pretty cool. And there were like 5, 6, 7, 8 people who were, maybe, no, there was a lot more than 5, 6, 7, 8, like 10, 15. And they had combinations of different units and different hardware they were traveling on. And first off, I thought, oh, I'm going to get beat up by a gang of people on EVs. But at the same time, this is like this, we're in a transportation mode change where small scale pieces of hardware can pack a whole bunch of energy. And it's like bikes, but faster and smaller and easier to manage for moving around. Like, it's a small little box, you can park it somewhere. It does need to charge, but it doesn't. I don't know. I'm super excited and watching all this stuff happen, and every time I see a new headline, I click on it. I totally get caught by all the clickbait because right now the neatest things are coming out, and I'm just like, all right, what's next? Show me some cool stuff. And so I'm a big fan of what's happening with all of our transportation innovation. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to make a couple of announcements. You can find all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Give us a rating and review on Spotify or Apple. That helps others find this content. Click on our YouTube channel. The YouTube icon is right there at cleanpowerhour.com. And I'm actually going to put this on screen. I want to remind you, our listeners, we do this for you. And John and I are bringing you a news roundup every week on Thursdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And then each week, I'm doing a one-on-one interview with folks like Jay Caspery of Grid Strategies about the future of the clean grid. That was a wonderful interview. If you're interested in the grid at all, check out Jay Caspery. Earlier this week, we published Antonia Ginsberg-Klempt, president of Gizmo Power, with a mobile solar carport. Really cool electric appliance that plugs into your dryer outlet or your EV charging outlet and gives you solar power to your home without a electric permit, in theory. And they're going to be at SPI, otherwise known as RE Plus, where John and I will be September 19th to 22nd. So check out RE Plus, huge trade show. And I wanted to ask you, John, just because we are in the run-up to SPI, what you plan to visit and spend time with, because you have to be selective. It's such a huge trade show. You can't visit everything. There's just not enough hours in the day generally. But what are you looking for, and what kind of manufacturers do you want to reach out to you, or manufacturers or other types of companies in the clean energy transition? Who are you looking to connect with?
Funny, I usually just ramble around the floor and try and just walk and cover as much as I can. I'm going to be there a full show, so 3 full days or 2.5, whatever it is, the real number. I have a few meetings scheduled just from people I do business with, but not a lot. With PV Magazine, I'm gonna be offering a tour because via RE Plus, they want to give a group of people a tour around. So you might see me in a bright orange vest and a hat with a little microphone talking with 10, 15 people. But my goal, man, it's always so hard. The module manufacturers, they all overwhelm me because it's so hard for me to technically pick hardware. I may want to speak with engineers and zoning people, or people who are good at finding land. The hydrogen stuff is exciting me this year. Commercial batteries, I would really love to talk to some commercial battery people. Battery control systems, I've been thinking about a lot. I want to get to know Sonnen better. They make such beautiful hardware that I feel like I should know it better for my residential company. Yeah, it's so much. I'm definitely looking forward to going to a party or two and afterwards and getting free beer. I love it because we're not big enough yet to host an event, but we buy stuff from people who are big enough to host events, and that gets me free appetizers and free beer. You know, I'm looking forward to putting on around 3 pounds of weight at the show, because that's just what's going to happen. But I don't know, man. What about you? Do you have any specific folks that you're talking to?
I'm very interested in the emerging tech around vehicle to grid. We have a story about that we're going to talk about later in the show related to school buses. I'm very interested in next generation AC modules that don't need a battery to wake up when the grid goes down.
That's really only the IQ8 from Enphase, right? Yeah, yep. That's an awesome one.
So I want to connect with Enphase. I've never had Enphase on the show. Would love to schedule an interview. I've had dialogue now and again, but haven't nailed down an interview. Would love to bring them on to talk about their full suite. They're very well known in the residential market, but they're going after the commercial market now as well. And so very innovative company. Batteries, love batteries. I love tech for remote monitoring, whether that's drones or airplanes and the software that makes that all work. I'm a geek for that. And yeah, and I want to see some solar panels that are, almost 8 feet tall. So they make me feel small.
And you're like what, not seven, geez. You're like what, 6'3"?
I'm 6'4".
6'4", yeah, you're a tall guy. So yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, I'm writing this course on selling commercial solar. The standard mantra is, commercial solar module is 3.5 by 6.25 feet, in dimension, or 3.25 by 6.5, something like that. But that number is pretty much out the window now. They're really approaching 4 feet in width and approaching 8 feet in length. They're 7+ with these large format. I have heard some predictions that maybe the module manufacturers have overshot the size factor. You got to be able to carry these things around without breaking them. So there's some practical limits to how big you can make solar modules.
Now you're actually talking about utility scale modules, because me as a rooftop solar guy, we're still sometimes buying the middle sizing, not the resi ones that are, so there's a little bit of there's a big variety out there now. I need to buy a few modules because we got the exact right amount of modules we needed, and we had two damaged ones. And so now I need to find a couple modules, and I'm like, all right, I hope there's a standard module, because I want to find one that's matched. And going forward, of course, in 5-10 years, if something happens, I want to be able to replace my modules. And it's interesting to watch. It's a thought that's like, all right, will we be able to match up a module in 10 years if we lose one on this string? Are there going to be similar form factored units? And that's a question I absolutely wonder about, because everything's changing so fast. Right now is when it's happening too. And there's a plethora of sizings out there in the world. And I'm just like, all right, let's see what happens. Buy the panels. See you in 10 years. Hope for the best.
And it's not a bad idea to buy some extra panels. They will break occasionally, and it's good to have some extras around. But let's talk about this electric school bus story in Massachusetts. In a publication I'm not real familiar with. It's called Renewable Energy Magazine, at the heart of clean energy journalism. And they
mostly press releases, but they're another source that gets good data out there. I got like 70 or 80 renewable RSS feeds that I get news from. So these are among the folks.
Yep. So it says electric school buses in Massachusetts sent energy back to the electricity grid for more than 80 hours this summer. You can think of an electric school bus as a power plant on wheels, right? It's got a massive battery.
Huge.
And it moves around. And so that can provide resiliency to different types of facilities. Of course, you've got the school, that would be a natural. If there's a natural disaster, you need a place to come together and huddle and get food and water and shelter. And so schools are, a vital asset for resiliency. And now, with the electrification of school bus fleets, this is a way to provide an added layer of resiliency.
That's a real interesting point, the resilience. I mean, in general, I was just thinking, school buses run during times that aren't as heavy grid demand and can charge right in the middle of the day. And then they can be plugged up to the grid in the evening and then recharge overnight. And so they'll be pumped for the morning and drive around a little bit. Then they'll charge in the middle of the day, drive around a little bit, be ready for the evening peak, slowly charge up at the cheap rate. But when you talk about resilience, I mean, the school bus itself could be a piece of the resilience puzzle. You could have resilience on wheels. You could develop a school bus that has a medical facility inside of it, maybe food, and just send it out. Or it's just designed just to feed people. This is a school bus to feed people and charge phones in hard hit areas. And 9 to 5, though, it takes kids around. But when events occur, we have a technique for filling it out, for kitting it out, and delivering support to the population. That's pretty awesome. I mean, these batteries are big, like a semi trailer, an electric semi. It could drive food into the area and then have solar panels on the roof that just flop open like a big flower and then hang out there for a while and help the local population just have a little bit of normalcy. So we just finished writing an article for PV Mag this morning that talks about the amount of energy storage that's going to be deployed in the US going forward. And 90% of it is via vehicles. 10% of it is grid. Like if we actually got to a point where 100% of cars were part of the vehicle to grid network around the US, we wouldn't need stationary batteries, because cars are going to blow stationary energy storage out of the water, the amount of energy they use. Now, we have to make sure we keep those all charged and everything. But if we had some, if people really gave a damn and they're like, oh, I'm going to help the grid, and I bought a little bit bigger battery in my car to do so, we could very easily power the country with wind and solar and V2G, because car batteries are that significant going forward. So I'm interested in how we electrify our vehicles, and again, how the form factor change leads to broader changes in society. There's one thing, I kept reading that if we went pure AI, like awesome AI with all of our vehicles, we would need 90% less cars, because most cars are parked 95% of the time.
Yep.
So if we did get super efficient with vehicles and we only needed 10, 20%, then this dream of powering the grid with just cars would fall away. But we then have a whole bunch of leftover lithium manufacturing capacity to power the grid. So I'm not worried about the volume of batteries. I'm wondering about how the heck it's going to look when it rolls out. And school buses that run the grid and can be resilient, part of the resilience play, that's pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah, that article mentions two companies that I want to mention as well. One is Proterra. They are an American EV company. And let me see if I can put this on screen. So here's Proterra. They have battery technology, charging infrastructure, drivetrains, and transit buses. And then it mentions also Highland Electric Fleets, I think is the name of the company, but these guys are in the business of electrifying school bus fleets. They own the buses and the infrastructure, and then lease it to the school. So it's a low cost way for schools to make the switch, right? Today, most schools are still running fleets of diesel buses. Some of them own their bus fleets, some of them lease their fleets. It's a both and diesel exhaust is a major environmental hazard. It's a human health hazard. It's just no bueno. And if we could have our kids all riding on electric school buses with these 226 kWh batteries in them, a Model Y has a 60 kWh battery. So it's going on 4 Model Ys put together, right, in terms of its capacity. And it just makes such good sense. And we're just at the beginning. We're going to see this massive transformation of this transportation infrastructure, and it's just good for us in so many ways.
Yeah.
We are so lucky, John. We are part of such a good phenomenon that is good for humans. It's good for the economy. It's good for the future of humanity. It's good for the environment. Whatever your interest in life is, the clean energy transition is going to be good for it. And I mean, it's funny how sometimes certain people try to rain on our parade and step on our dream, but there really is no bad that comes out of the clean energy transition that I can think of. I mean, of course, we have to be careful about how we mine stuff, right? There is mining, there is manufacturing. On the manufacturing side, look, I'm looking forward to bringing Rondo Energy to the show. We just did the interview yesterday with John O'Donnell. They're making industrial heat using traditional electric resistance heater, just like you have in your toaster, okay? It uses iron coils that you run electricity through, it creates resistance and it heats up. It's very efficient. And then you can make this hot stack of bricks. These are bricks that are used in the steel industry. So they're 200-year-old technology. Anywhere you can make bricks, just pretty much every place on earth, there's dirt that you can turn into these bricks. So the materials are common. And you can make 1500 degrees C heat. And what you do is you have a big factory, right? That's let's say it's a steel plant. And today it's using coal and natural gas for all these thermal processes. Well, tomorrow you build a solar farm next to the plant. This is off grid. You build a big solar farm. You don't have to connect the solar farm to the grid, so you can avoid all those interconnection headaches and limits. And then you pump that juice into the Rondo thermal battery, or it's a heat battery, right? And then you have clean heat that it's steady, gives you what you need 24/7. And then when the sun is shining or the wind is blowing, you load that battery with clean electricity to charge it up. And it's a massive, the footprint of thermal heat, the carbon footprint of thermal heat from industrial processes is very big. Together with the electricity that these industrial facilities consume and their carbon footprint, they are the largest sector. I think that the thermal processes alone are something like almost 30% of our carbon footprint. So it's a very big part of the economy. And yeah, we'll use green hydrogen also for these things. But I'm falling in love with these electric thermal batteries. So you can look forward to that. It'll be almost 2 months, I think, before we are able to publish that episode, as much as I want to publish it tomorrow because I have a backlog. But and if you have a guest that you want to bring on the show, reach out to me. I'm getting pickier and pickier about who I bring onto the show because I have so many suitors knocking on the door. But reach out to me. If you're a credible and innovative part of the clean energy transition, we want to share the news about your products and services. Well, we're almost out of time, John, but we have time for one or two more stories. What do you want to talk about?
Let's talk about the CMP corridor power line that was that's been going back and forth in Maine, and now, so first a state referendum voted against it, like 10, $20 million, maybe even 60 million. Some big amount of money was spent across Maine.
So what is this? What is this CMP corridor?
It's a power line coming from Canada to Massachusetts, specifically to Boston, to pump hydro. And it was approved like a long time ago, permitted and everything, and it was 90% done being constructed. Then a state referendum pushed heavily by the fossil fuel industry and probably other sort of clean energy companies because they don't want to compete with the hydro. A state referendum, the people said, hey, we don't like it. But now the Supreme Court has said, listen, just because the people don't like something doesn't mean you can just not do it. It was already approved, it was permitted, or it seems like it was permitted. And here's what the court said. The court said, first off, the state referendum was unconstitutional. That's not how we do things. The tyranny of the majority isn't how the world works. And if this company can prove that they were moving forward on a legitimate permit and in good faith effort, and they can show the documentation, then this power line is going to get approved and move forward again. And it was, again, it was like, it's like a 1 or 2 gigawatt power line coming from Canada. I think it was a dual direction and down to Boston. And now, and there's that good faith reliance that the project would be legal before the vote. And the project was fully moving forward before the vote. So I'm hoping for it, because having a gig of 24/7 hydro coming from Canada at like a few cents per kilowatt hour, it's a great price to the best of my knowledge. It's less than a dime, and that's just pretty cool. I'm hoping that we get more transmission built, because every one of these models that I see that talk about 100% by the year whatever, the best ones that look the best always have a lot of transmission, moving wind from the Midwest, east and west, and then solar from the south or something. And power lines, man, if we had a whole bunch of power lines just like we have gas pipes, and we got rid of the gas pipes and filled them up with power lines or something, we would accelerate much faster toward cleaning our grid and cleaning transportation. Energy and electricity would both move forward very aggressively. So
Yeah.
I thought that was quite good to see that in the news. Just popped up like 2-3 days ago.
I mean, this is why it's so important to live in a country with rule of law. It's so interesting how, the Trump investigation has spurned this anti-FBI movement. But our justice system is basically sound, and these people are well-meaning and doing their jobs and following the law, and that's so important.
Yeah.
Try living in a place that doesn't have rule of law, and you'll quickly realize that it's no fun. You can quickly end up in jail because some tyrant thinks you're a bad actor. And glad to hear that Massachusetts and you yourself could be consuming some nice clean hydropower.
Yep.
From Canada.
Yep.
It's there's many clean technologies that are part of the energy transition, and hydro is one of them. So,
all right, last article, Tim, because we're almost done. We got 5 minutes.
Commercial metals company launches net zero rebar. I'm curious, is that a good one, or do you want to go somewhere else?
No, that's it. I like the net zero rebar. 75% offset by clean KWHs, and then they're selling offsets. So it's not like full clean, but it's it's moving there. But the key is that they're using electric gear.
Electric arc furnaces.
Yeah. And an electric arc furnace, they said, is 75% cleaner than a standard rebar maker. And so I thought that was pretty sweet. And I copied the wrong little text there. But I thought that was neat. Knocking off 75% of your emissions by a new technology, that's step number one. And then buying 100% clean electricity, that's step number two. If you could do 24/7 clean, that'd be awesome, but that's still hard. And then step number three, you're buying offsets. Now, offsets are really challenging these days. Whether they're real or not matters, but at least they're swinging deep. They're swinging hard. And number one is that if they're using electric arc furnaces, that's a 75% knock. So bam, that's good work. And rebar, I build things with rebar in them not regularly, but every time I build a carport, we're using some rebar. So that's cool. I wish I could buy some from them, or just buy some to put it on my desk and be like, hey, here's some clean rebar and show it off. So it's another little innovation, another little thing. I'm pretty happy seeing those little weird little market niches that find their place. And by the way, Tim, we didn't talk about solar panels at all on today's show. So I'm kind of upset at that.
I did mention that I saw that report. I think it was by Energy Sage. We'll have to talk about this. There's a report out from Energy Sage about the solar panel industry, and China is making, by my estimate, 22 times as many solar panels as we manufacture in the US. we
Yeah.
are growing our footprint now, right? It's not just EV batteries that are factories that are getting built. It's solar panel factories that are getting built. We've touched on this
Yep.
previous shows. First Solar is expanding. Q Cells is expanding. Hellion Solar is expanding.
Yep. Meyer
And
Burger.
Meyer Burger.
Yep.
Did they pick a site?
Yeah, I do believe they have a facility in Arizona that they've already picked out, the Goodyear facility. Yes. So yes, I do believe they do have a site. Now it's about building the machines and working on the factory, getting the cash together because they have to raise some cash. They don't have the cash in house, so they're selling some shares. But they got their site and they're expanding it now because they signed that deal with DE Shaw, and they signed a deal for about 3.5 gigs over the next 4 years, and
Right.
it can go way up. It can go up to 5 gigs and further. So
I think that was 2 weeks ago. We reported on that Meyer Burger story.
yep.
So I reminded our listeners, cleanpowerhour.com is how you can find all our content. Reach out to me there. I'm also TG Montague on Twitter. How can our listeners find you, Mr. Commercial Solar Guy?
CommercialSolarGuy.com. We got a cool contact us page. Got to update our website a little bit. We're also on Twitter, way too much. Solar in Mass is the username there. Solar in massive amounts, also in Massachusetts. And then LinkedIn. You can just type my name, John Fitzgerald Weaver, or Commercial Solar Guy, and you can see what we share there. But best place to find us is on our website, CommercialSolarGuy.com.
And looking forward to seeing you in the flesh in Anaheim in just
Couple weeks.
couple weeks. So reach out to me if you're going to RE Plus, anybody out there, and would love to have a cup of coffee or a beer with you in sunny Southern